Honourable Senators, I rise to speak to Senator Moody's inquiry on a matter of urgency, the regulation of artificial intelligence in Canada. At the outset, I note that the Oxford philosopher Nick Bostrom has argued that, given the potential power of advanced computers to run simulations, our reality is very likely a simulation. With that in mind, you might want to take my speech today with a grain of salt, but we'll wait till the finish, because maybe not. Colleagues, we stand on the cusp of a profound transformation, artificial intelligence. It's a change on the scale of the Industrial Revolution, nuclear energy, or the advent of language itself. AI is not just another emerging technology. It's a force multiplier, a general purpose capability evolving faster than our institutions, laws, and imagination. Today, I'll speak to you about four aspects of this subject. First, I'll outline the far-reaching implications of AI and potential regulation for our democracy and society. Second, I'll explore containment, technical, normative, and legal, as a framework for governance. Third, I'll survey global approaches from the EU to the US and China before turning to Canada's efforts through Bill C-27, the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act. Finally, I'll offer concrete proposals for strengthening our approach so AI remains a tool that serves the public interest, not one that undermines it. First, the social implications of AI and the potential regulation. Some argue that regulation stifles innovation. In the context of AI, however, what we want is innovation accompanied by robust risk management. This is where potential regulation comes in. A strong regulatory framework can attract investment, foster innovation, and bolster public confidence. This is why potential regulation must address civil rights, including rights to privacy, free speech, and transparency, as well as concerns around safety and accountability. The stakes could not be higher. AI is no longer on the margins. It's reshaping how we work, learn, communicate, and govern. In its most advanced forms, AI won't merely assist us, it will replace, optimize, predict, and sometimes outpace us. From finance to healthcare to defense and justice, AI's reach is expanding rapidly. Its growing power brings opportunities, but also serious risks to our society. Colleagues, this is not alarmism. The modern democratic state once promised us security, prosperity, and democratic rights. AI now threatens to topple those pillars. Security? Imagine a world where autonomous drones and other weapons controlled by algorithms wage wars. Machines outthinking machines in conflicts we can't even comprehend. Where is human accountability? Where does it stop? At the same time, without advanced AI, our country and our allies would be vulnerable to the advanced AI capabilities of potential adversaries. As for our prosperity, AI-driven systems could come to dominate and even manipulate financial markets. A small number of firms may end up controlling the machines that influence your mortgage, pension, or employment. Technology has already displaced many forms of physical labor, and now even the domains of human thought, creativity, and artistic expression are at risk. In a society whose social contract has long balanced the rewards of free enterprise with the protections of a social safety net, what new challenges will AI pose to this fragile balance? AI could also undermine social justice. The 2019 study in journal Science found an AI in U.S. healthcare was far less likely to recommend care for black patients than white patients with similar conditions. Not due to malice, but because it mirrored past discrimination baked into the data. This isn't conscious bias, it's structural harm, and it's invisible until it becomes systemic. As to democratic rights, algorithmically curated content and social media manipulation threaten to undermine their meaningful exercise. Generative AI systems like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, LLaMA, Grok, and Copilot are embedded in our browsers, messengers, and productivity tools. These tools just don't generate text, they shape influence. They direct information flows, frame debates, and set emotional tones. With minor tweaks, bad actors can weaponize them. cheaply flooding public spaces with misinformation, deep fakes, and propaganda. In a world where AI undermined the development of critical thinking skills in young people, this is all the more dangerous. Although the one danger is that AI could become malevolent, a pressing concern is that it's indifferent. It doesn't care. It optimizes, it reflects the world as it is, not as it should be, without deliberate choices about the values and limits we encode. AI will default to the logic of profit, power, and prediction. There's no other danger, subtler still, that the machines will misunderstand. Humans are walking contradictions. We're nothing if not inconsistent. We want both adventure and safety, privacy and convenience. We lie, we change our minds, we change our moods, we exaggerate, we regret. How can machines understand us when we contain multitudes? Yet we are poised to hand over not just our tasks, but our judgments, even our ethics, to machines. How will machines balance the rights of individuals with the greater good? A dilemma that humans continue to debate in many contexts. This is not just a technical issue, it's a political challenge, a moral test, a crisis of good governance. So how should we respond? This brings me to the second point, containment. Not as suppression, but stewardship, not through fear, but through responsibility. Containment means democratic control over the tools we create. It rests on three principles. First, technical containment, referring to what happens in a lab or an R&D facility. In the context of AI, this includes using air-gapped systems, secure sandboxes, controlled simulations, emergency shut-off mechanisms, and robust built-in safety and security protocols. These tools help ensure a system's safety, integrity, and freedom from compromise, and allow it to be shut down if necessary. Second, normative containment, a culture among developers and institutions that value ethics over velocity. Power without reflections is dangerous. Third, legal containment, regulation that crosses borders, laws ensuring transparency, civil rights, liability, and oversight. I'll show integrity, values, and ethics, transparency, and sustainability as well. Let me be clear, regulation alone is not enough. A summit or a Silicon Valley press release is no substitute for binding rules. We must bring together government, industry, academia, and civil society to co-create Canadian version of AI rooted in that integrity, values and ethics, transparency, and sustainability, not to mention fairness, inclusion, and peace. We must proactively act before we're forced to react, before the next discriminatory algorithm, job loss, or erosion of trust. To my third point, globally, governments are taking divergent approaches. The European Union adopted a comprehensive AI Act, a tiered risk-based system with clear obligations for high-risk systems and enforceability transparency rules for generative AI. The U.S. has taken a sectoral market-led approach, encouraging cooperation, but with uneven results. And China, at a leader in regulation and an outlier in practice, on paper, China looks proactive, regulating social media, banning crypto, publishing AI ethics guidelines. Its draft rules for large language models, LLMs, go further than the West, but in reality, civilian AI is tightly controlled, while military and surveillance AI operate with few limits. AI is not just a tool, it's a state power. That is the future we must avoid. To close, where then does Canada stand? Our most significant step was Bill C-27, the Digital Charter Implementation Act, which included the Artificial Intelligence and Data Act, or ADA, proposed risk-based oversight for high-impact systems, including generative models. But ADA didn't pass before Parliament dissolved. Canada now lacks binding legal safeguards, leaving a critical governance gap. In response, the government introduced a voluntary code of practice for generative AI developers. It encourages fairness, transparency, and accountability, but is non-binding and unenforceable. It's no substitute for legislation. More recently, Canada appointed its First Minister for Artificial Intelligence and Digital Innovation, announced by Prime Minister Klyne on May 13, 2025. The Honourable Evan Sullivan's appointment signals growing recognition of AI's importance, but the minister's mandate is still undefined. According to a May 17 CBC report, the PMO referred inquiries to the Liberal Party's platform, Canada Strong, where AI is mainly tied to economic growth and public service reform. Worthy goals, but leaving many questions unanswered. Contrast that with the EU's AI Act, which requires developers to disclose copyrighted training data, prevent illegal content generation, and comply with general data protection regulation. Those level privacy rules. Canada's approach via ADA and the voluntary code remains vague and toothless. The gap is especially clear in one critical area: privacy. Privacy needs urgent attention. AI is transforming how data is collected, inferred, and used. In Quebec, a 2022 ruling found AI-generated dropout predictions counted as personal information, even when based on anonymized data. The Privacy Commissioner called for mandatory privacy impact assessments for high-risk AI systems. This chamber should support that call. We must ensure that AI serves people, not the other way around. That means enforceable standards for defining and regulating generative AI, mandatory privacy safeguards and impact assessments, public disclosure rules for high-risk applications, and independent oversight with enforcement power. It also means broad and inclusive consultation with technologists, ethicists, labor leaders, Indigenous communities, and Canadians. Honourable Senators, AI governance is a global challenge, but our response must be distinctly Canadian, rooted in dignity, equality, transparency, and the rule of law. AI is not just a tool. It changes how we make decisions, assign accountability, and define human agency. We must meet this moment with clarity and resolve. If we delay, we risk falling behind, letting digital systems evolve faster than our laws, leaving Canadians exposed to discrimination, misinformation, and privacy violations. Let me commit to making Canadian innovation a force not only for economic development, and I should say let us commit, I'm not taking it on myself, out for justice, economic development, out for justice and well-being. In short, as science fiction becomes reality, let us remember the lesson of the Terminator franchise. In the words of John Connor, there's no fate but what will we make for ourselves. Thank you, merci, and haikit tatamihin.
Senator Kutcher, you have a question?
Yes.
Senator Klyne, will you take a question?
Yes, the answer is 7.
Senator Kutcher.
Thank you so much. Thank you both to you and Senator Moody for this, and to Senator Moody for launching this incredibly important inquiry. I hope other people speak to it. One question for our thoughts. AI development comes from two distinctly different categories. One are state-driven, like in China, which it's defined as upholding socialist principles, for whatever that means. The other is private industry-driven. As I understand it, it would be unlikely that one country can create legislation and rules that is going to govern an industry which is driven by private companies or by a state. Has there been discussion, are you knowing about any discussion for creating a global agency that might have some of this regulatory capacity, for example, such as the International Atomic Energy Agency? Would that be something that Canada should think about doing with like-minded states?
Senator Klyne.
Yeah, I think that's the kind of window you need to be talking about, so I fully agree with what you're looking at. We need to explore that. But I think that, when you're pulling together those people for that summit or that pinnacle moment, you need to have the right people there. And, I think I have a lot of faith in Canada's abilities within this realm. We just need to get them together, but give them a reason why, and so that they're engaged and committed, and they see what happens if they fail. And then we talk about the hows. And I know our Prime Minister likes to talk about how and not so much why. I like to spend time talking about why, so people get engaged, committed, and they know what they're fighting for. But I think exactly what you said there is a good place to start.